We have all found a wallet, a phone, money, or a precious object on the ground. Generally, when this object is accompanied by a name or phone number, we don't think about it. We rush to give it back to its owner. Well, when we're honest, of course. Unfortunately, there are some people who are not honest and who immediately take the found object. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Sit back and enjoy the story of a poor man who saw his life change overnight thanks to his honesty. You will see that it is possible to be poor and destitute and have a heart of gold. A beautiful story that proves that more often than not, honesty and generosity pay off. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a blue thumb, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all the notifications and not miss anything of our next publications. Here we go! Life as a homeless person is not easy. Wandering the streets all day long, looking for anything that can be a source of money or food can be extremely tiring. The homeless who wander around are constantly threatened by insecurity, by hunger, and especially by injustice. But it is also a life that can bring its share of unexpected and surprises. Our first story takes place in Thailand, where a homeless man named Waralop was living on the streets of Bangkok. One day, Waralop had an incredible adventure. While the 45-year-old man was taking refuge in the Hoi Quang subway station to sleep, he came across a leather wallet of the famous luxury brand Hermes. Seemingly quite full, the homeless man decides to open it. He then notices that inside there are several credit cards and 20,000 Thai baht, which is equivalent to a little less than 550 euros, a sum that could undoubtedly change his life. When he discovered the object filled with money, the man had only 9 bahts, or 24 cents of euros. Anyone else in his place, being in such a precarious situation as his, would not have hesitated for a second and would have put the wallet in his pocket. But Waralop decided to hand it over with all its contents to the nearest police station of the metro station, without expecting anything in return. For him, this was the logical thing to do. The wallet should be returned to its owner. After all, when one knows the true value of things, which is certainly the case of this man, one quickly understands the choice of our modern hero. He will certainly have feared that the owner of the wallet would be in dire need of what it contained. But Waralop would never have thought that the owner in question was not just anyone. It turned out that the wallet belonged to Nittipong Ryanggyos, a very wealthy 30-year-old businessman, owner of a steel factory in Bangkok. Of course, the lost wallet was quickly returned to Nitti. The latter wanted to know, out of curiosity, who was the honest man who had returned his belongings. He quickly learned who was behind such a gesture and what his situation was. Nittipong Ryanggyos decided to reward his generosity and humility in the best way. He offered him a job in his factory, a godsend for the man who was wandering the streets all day. The businessman was also very generous, as this job offer was accompanied by a salary of 11,000 bahts, a little more than the average minimum wage at the time, as well as a decent housing specially built for the factory's employees. What more could you want? He who had been homeless for decades became overnight a citizen like any other. Although he had nothing in his pockets, he nevertheless had a sense of citizenship, moral duty, and honesty, whereas it would have been easier for him to put the contents of the lost wallet in his pocket to get out of poverty. And this is precisely what appealed to Nitti. He was touched by the values of Waralop. Tarika, the wife of the rich businessman, was also keen to look after her new employee. She took him shopping and bought him new clothes and necessities. In the end, Waralop's life was turned upside down for the better, thanks to one small gesture. The few credit cards and money he found are nothing compared to the stability and sustainability he lives in today. He is currently employed as a worker who packs steel before transporting the goods, a job he would never have dared to dream of one day. After all, isn't it said that it is those who have the least who give the most? Did you like the story? Here are 2 others that will prove to you that in life, you only reap what you sow. Direction now to the tricolored capital, Paris. In May 2018, a young man in a precarious situation of Malian origin named Mamoudou Gassama was walking down the streets, along with several other passers-by. He spotted a 4-year-old child clinging to a balcony railing, suspended in mid-air more than 15 meters above the ground. The 22-year-old undocumented immigrant, who had come to France only a few months ago, launched himself at the facade of the building with his bare hands, under the lively encouragement of passers-by. It took him only a handful of seconds to climb up and save the child from a fatal fall. At the time of the incident, the child was alone in the apartment. The father of the child will be sentenced to 3 years, and Mamoudou will become in a few minutes a real national superhero. He is quickly nicknamed Spider-Man on social networks. The young Malian, whose feat was heroic, had told the press that he had not thought at the time the risks he took and the danger he faced. He simply launched himself spontaneously with the sole purpose of saving the child from the void. A video immortalizing the scene quickly became the buzz and earned the courageous Malian several marks of recognition, including an invitation to the Élysée Palace by the President of the French Republic in person. Following this meeting, he will be regularized and naturalized French by decision of President Emmanuel Macron. Mamoudou Gassama will also be invited by the President of Mali, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, to the Kalouba Palace in Bamako to receive well-deserved honors. This, in addition to the Grand Vermeil Medal of the City of Paris, the highest distinction of the Commune, which he received from the hands of Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of the French capital. Of course, that's not all, as he proved to the whole world in 30 seconds that he was endowed with an exceptional agility. The French president insisted on integrating him in the very famous fire department of Paris. Such a fate would almost make you want to walk the streets with your head in the air. After the Parisian stunts, let's go to Boston, USA. An American homeless man named Glenn James was wandering around a shopping mall in the city one day when he came across a backpack containing a passport, $2,500 in cash, and nearly $42,000 in traveler's checks. What would you have done in his place? Would you have bought a ticket to a dream destination? Would you have bought the latest game console on the market? Glenn James, on the other hand, despite the miserable situation he was living in, decided to take the backpack to the police station and immediately report the loss. Of course, the 54-year-old never thought for a moment that his righteousness would earn him even greater rewards than what was in the bag in question. Indeed, his generous, honest act has resulted in a worldwide outpouring of generosity. Ethan Whittington, a 27-year-old accountant from Virginia, decided to reward Glenn James by launching a fundraising campaign on the website GoFundMe.com. Very touched by the situation of the homeless man, thousands of donors have contributed to gather a generous fund of, hang on tight, about $120,000. In all, nearly 5,000 people have contributed to the fundraising effort. And the generosity of internet users did not stop there. Glenn James received many messages of support in which he was offered free accommodation in Paris or a room in a farmhouse in New York. In addition to offers of accommodation, there was also donations of clothes and material goods. For his part, Glenn James shyly confided that he would never have dared to steal a penny from the lost backpack. He also thanked Ethan Whittington for his kindness and sense of solidarity. The accountant simply replied, "You have given me back my faith in humanity." Thanks to this initiative, the homeless man was able to open a bank account and now has everything he needs to start a new life. And as happiness never comes alone, Glenn James was even thanked by Boston Police Chief Ed Davis during a ceremony. He received a special commendation in recognition of his honesty and exemplary behavior. So, if one day you happen to come across a backpack full of money, don't even think about it. Just hand it in, and who knows, you might get rewarded. For our last story, back in France, in the city of Dunkirk this time, in the department of Nord, A young teenager, Suvan Chun, proved to be incredibly quick-witted, helping another boy who had been stabbed. On a sunny Sunday, the young boy crossed paths with another 15-year-old who had just been stabbed several times, attacked by a gang of delinquents in the Petite Synth neighborhood. The young man's life was in serious danger. Fortunately, Suvan had the incredible reflex to intervene spontaneously and to perform first aid on the victim. He applied pressure points with his t-shirt on the wounds and, while keeping a cool head, managed to contact the emergency services. Thus, while waiting for them, he managed to save the life of the teenager who was dying on the ground. The most incredible part of the story is that the young man from Dunkirk confessed that he had never learned first aid. However, he explained that he had seen his mother to do it once during a soccer game, when one of his fellow players had caught his knee during a fall. He had therefore naturally repeated the gestures that he had fortunately particularly well retained. For this heroic act, the 13-year-old boy was rewarded by the mayor of Dunkirk, who gave him the city medal and a poster of the movie Dunkirk. The schoolboy even received free first aid training from the Red Cross professionals. If some people say that superheroes are only in the movies and that superpowers are only the fruit of the invention of people with overflowing imaginations, here are several examples that attest to the contrary. What do you think of these incredible stories? Life can be very surprising sometimes, can't it? What would you have done in the place of these people? Tell us in the comments.